Europa's Blood, a novel by James Daniel Shunk. In our last chapter, Robbie Moreland, carrying his father's mysterious briefcase, meets up with his friend U-Jin Song in America. A mercenary tracks the boy in hopes of stealing the briefcase. At the time of the theft, a tussle breaks out, and the three are sucked through a strange space-time rift created by a machine from the briefcase. After passing through the portal, the mercenary and the briefcase are captured by the police, while U-Jin and Robbie, after escaping capture, are wondering how to get back the briefcase to get home. Chapter 2. The Lost Boys. Song and Moreland continued to stare at the skyline in disbelief. Their silence spoke volumes. Any question about "where are we?" was just too open-ended. The possible answers were just too scary to imagine. 15 minutes into the ride, Song piloted the dinghy to the small bay island. Moreland jumped out and pulled the boat up on shore. He sat on the beach. Song climbed out and dropped onto the sand next to him. He studied the skyline. He wiped his hands on his jeans. With disgust, he threw an empty plastic bottle into the bay. "What has happened here?" "I don't know. What do we do now?" Moreland said. His voice was in edgy panic. "I am just trying to wrap my head around all this. The case fell and then opened up some kind of portal or rift or tear. I don't even know what to call it. We traveled from my home to someplace else. Either some place on Earth in the same time frame, some other reality, or time, or I don't even know what to think. This blows my mind." "Listen, we have the key to the case," Moreland said. "If we get the case back, maybe we can reverse all this." "I agree. We need that case." Song could not believe how hopeless the situation seemed. From the deepest depths of his mind, he could not produce any possible solution. "What did your dad do for a living?" "Built rockets for the government. His work was mostly classified. I don't know much about it. I only know it was called Project Quantum Jump. He was not allowed to talk about it with any of us. I asked him if he could give any details, but all he said was his project could change the future. He did have a dry sense of humor." "Hold on. Let me get this straight. Your dad's workmate contacted you. He was worried about some of his co-workers wanting to steal some information or research or whatever. This doctor freaks out, calls you, and then gives you his research, which is the briefcase. Do you follow me?" Moreland gave Song a thumbs-up sign with a distinct frown. "And minutes after taking possession, you nearly get killed. You then hightail it to the United States, where the same thug that tried to kill you in London shows up and tries to steal the machine again." "Yes, I am sure it was the same guy." "You know he could just be a random thief, an opportunist who knows a buyer, something like that?" Moreland still seemed deep in thought. "No, I don't think so. Remember, I think my dad had warned Raymond about something. He probably told him to turn over his research to a trusted person in the advent of an emergency. And this thief randomly shows up? Not likely. He is the guy my dad was worried about, or hired by the guy your dad was worried about. So our thief is a mercenary of sorts." A gust of cold wind washed over his body. "Hold on. Let me think. Could this situation be as desperate as it seems? What are you supposed to do when you are lost?" His mind wandered back to his childhood. He had hiked into the swamp behind his summer camp. He realized he was hopelessly lost after jumping from one dry patch of land to the next. When the fear of death gripped him, he began to cry. Then he recalled the Mall rule. The rule was this: when you have wandered away from your parents and gotten lost, the solution is not crying. You sit down and listen for them. This thought had somehow comforted him, so he had stopped crying and sat down on a half-rotten log. As he sat there, the answer came to him, something like magic. Out of the silence came the bark of dogs. That meant people. So he had headed out in the direction of the barks. In only 10 minutes, he was out of the swamp, and soon after, he found the old familiar trail that led him back to camp. He had not been as lost as he had thought. Had it not been for the swamp's thick vegetation, he probably would have seen the back of the camp dorms. Song was secretly wondering if this would work now. The consoling words of the all-merciful Lord came to him at that very moment. In returning and in quietness shall you be saved. In stillness and trusting confidence shall be your strength. Could the answer come out of the silence? He decided he would sit for as long as it took. He would either figure it out or die of hunger. At that moment, he heard a boat's oars hit the water. "Do you hear that?" he asked with a whisper. Moreland nodded. Song saw a small boat come into sight. It continued past them, moving along the shoreline. "Come on," Song said quietly. "Maybe they can help us." The two men stalked along the shoreline, following the boat's direction. They saw it move into a small cove hidden by trees and shrubs. They crept closer, trying to remain as quiet as possible. Song pointed when he saw the empty boat sitting on the shore. They moved up and looked in. "No one is here," Song said. A dried branch cracked behind him. He swung around to see someone obscured in the dark, standing under a tree, ready to strike with a piece of a branch limb. Both men jumped back in fright. After a moment, Moreland patted Song on the shoulder. "It's a girl." Song now saw the dirty face and hair, more like a street rat. She carefully stepped forward out of the shadows. "Are you policemen?" "No," Song said. "Relax. Put down the branch. What's your name?" "Who's asking?" "You are worried about the police? Are you in trouble?" Song did not think now that she had the distant, nervous eyes of a street vagrant. Her green eyes were clear and resolved. She was maybe a little younger than him, dressed in dirty and tattered clothes, yet she looked like a trained athlete. The girl shook her head. "Where are you from?" Song asked. "The city." "Bayville?" Her eyes narrowed with curiosity. "Close. No, it's Baytropolis." "Can you help us?" Song asked. "We need some information." "No. Turn around and go back the way you came." The girl pushed her ponytail off her shoulder. "What are you doing out here?" Moreland said. "I thought you lived in the city." "I'm camping," the girl said flatly. "We need your help," Song pleaded again. "It's none of my concern. If you want my advice, assuming you are in trouble, keep moving. The police can find you too easily otherwise, but stay away from me." "Why do we need to keep moving?" Moreland said. "No one followed us." "You from Mars?" the girl said. "A little technology called scanning." "Definitely not from around here," Moreland said. "Just tell us what you are talking about," Song said. "What is this scanner?" "This," the girl said as she turned her hand over, palm up. "Without it, you would be hungry and homeless and, I suppose, dead." She looked more confused than ever. In the dark, Song could easily see the dim green light at the base of her right palm. "Forget it. You guys have to go." She looked down at Song's hands. He quickly put them into his pockets. "Can you please help us?" Song asked again. "Why? There is nothing I can do." "It's the neighborly thing to do. Where are you staying? Can we spend the night at your camp?" The girl looked at both of them with scorn. Why should I help you? It is so odd. Nobody asks for help. Song figured he had about 10 seconds to convince her. The episode between the police and the older woman came to him. A man was beaten, robbed, and left for dead along the road. A policeman happened along. The robbed man pleaded for help. The policeman told him that if there was no crime in progress, he couldn't help. Later, a poor man going to the market to buy a loaf of bread and a water bottle came along. This man would often beg for food to feed his family. He was seen as a criminal by many. The injured man asked for help. So the poor man felt compassion for the injured man, took him into his house, and nursed him back to health. He gave the injured man some of his family's food. Song took a breath for dramatic effect. Who's the better man? The policeman? The man who upholds the law? Or the merciful criminal? The girl stared hard at them. Fine, tonight. Then you go. She lowered the branch and held it by her thigh. She turned and walked down a short trail past the trees. Song began to feel cold again. His adrenaline surge was gone, leaving him feeling drained. The temperature was dropping, and the wind had picked up. The three walked into a small clearing. He could still hear the waves gently breaking behind. In the center of the clearing was a fire pit surrounded by log seats. Beyond the seating area, at the back of the campsite, was a small olive-green nylon tent. A backpack lay on the ground near the entrance. The girl put some dried branches and paper under a burned-down log and started the kindling on fire. Soon, a campfire was burning bright. Song and Moreland sat on one of the logs next to the fire and tried to warm themselves. They rubbed their hands together, holding them up to the fire. Song saw the girl pull a small item from a pocket and slip it into a side pouch on the backpack next to the tent. He thought it looked like a memory stick. She then pulled out a silver package, ripped it open, and took a bite off the end of something resembling a piece of beef jerky. Her slim body slumped opposite Song and Moreland. Song watched the dirty and disheveled girl chew on the meat stick. He thought back to when she had touched his hand. He wondered if someone could catch a disease that way. "What's your name?" Song asked. The girl looked up while swallowing. She seemed to wonder if she should answer the question. "Pitzy. My name is Pitzy." "I'm Song. This is Moreland." "Song?" Pitzy asked. "Is that your surname? That's funny." She began to smile. "My grandfather grew up in Korea. He thinks we are descendants of the great Song Yang of the Buyo Kingdom." "I don't know about that." He laughed. "My friends call me Jin." Pitzy waved her hand several times. Her smile was gone. "I don't need to know your names. Look, earlier, you said you needed help. What sort of help do you two need?" Moreland sighed. "We had something stolen. The police have it along with the thief." "It is a case," Song said. "We want to get it back." Pitzy glanced around with discomfort. "I can give you directions to the local precinct. Not sure if that helps you much. For now, let's get some sleep. It has been a long day." She turned and went to her tent. Song's gaze went to the ground. "I love camping," he growled with sarcasm. Water Acclimation and Reclamation Director Vincent Van Carber sat in his office in the Pio Clementino government complex. His window overlooked the Cortile della Pina and the giant statue of Cardinal Cesare Ratio. On the gold plaque at the base, it read, "His Eminence, Dean of the College of Cardinals, Prefect Emeritus of the Congregation for Bishops, Director of the Galactic Science Council, Leader of the St. Gallen Group, born in Bergdorf, Switzerland on August 24, 2409, and died November 14, 2479. Motto, seek simplicity and distrust it. Van Carber's eyes refocused on his electronic device. His robotic finger touched the screen, and he started to read from the PADD. He had just gotten a status report on Operation Boomslang. The news was terrible. However, coincidentally, he received a second report that could get his operation back on track. For the bad part, he had sent 2 WAR agents into the Durbeck spaceport of Bayou Ganymede, hoping they could find a covert transport to Europa. The plan was to get them inside the main pumping facility and find a way to deactivate the security net shield. That would allow the state to land occupying forces. The 2 spies were captured while attempting to sneak onto a shuttle. Now they were being marched into a courtroom on every Martian and Jupiterian news feed. This failure probably leaked back to Van Carber's boss, Earth's supreme leader. Van Carber was expecting to get a call on that. The mistake, which led to the agent's detection, usually returned to the scanner issue. Earth citizens were all implanted at birth. Nothing on Earth worked without them. Even the PAD Van Carber held would not turn on unless he had been embedded or, in his case, wired. Much of his body was not flesh, like ordinary people. Another benefit to the implant was that it slowly released a prophylactic, which protected people from the fatal airborne T-virus. The encouraging part of the report may bail him out of this complicated mess. It could even get Operation Boomslang back on track. A communication had come from a war agent working in Baytropolis, USA province. Van Carber again scanned the text. As he read it, his frown creased into something like a smile. He scratched the liver spots that covered the top of his bald head and smiled all the wider. He read, "An individual of an unknown origin and descent had been arrested. An object was also retrieved with unusual tachyon readings. Signed, Agent Darsa Karpov." This report did not seem remarkable if triggered from a regular police feed, but this came from one of his field agents. It was not what the report said, but what it did not say. It did not say a Martian or Earthling or Jupiterian had been arrested. Any citizen of Earth would be immediately identified due to the scanner implant. Any Martian would be determined based on public records. Any Jupiterian would be, well, obviously, Jupiterian, so he took the statement to be something of great promise. He read again, "An unknown. Boomslang failed due to state citizens being known." What could this unknown person be? An anonymous, if not a hostile foreign agent, could be used. This was just what the failed Boomslang mission had needed. Van Carber had been working with another idea of scanner stealth tech. That was not yet in place and would open doors long-term. He hoped Karpov had something that would work short-term. His robotic finger moved over the PADD's touchscreen. He needed to send a message to his agent. He wrote, "Karpov, regarding unknown person. Retrieve, interview, and if a promising candidate, report ASAP." He pressed the virtual send key. He flipped back to a file he had opened a few minutes before the status report came in. He had been working on one other idea. Again, the puzzle was ultimately on how to infiltrate Outworld outposts. One idea he devised was to use a rogue Jupiterian anaborg. The Earth scanner implant made it hard to access any foreign port unregistered. That was an issue specific to Earthlings. But what about a native worker coming home from a foreign post? There lay the brilliance. Infiltration was possible if an agent was not linked to a scanner. Still, he knew an anaborg was not usually viable, as no anaborg would betray their own. But what about a reprogrammed anaborg? Could this be an option? The anaborgs were built in his image, with 2 arms and 2 legs, walking upright like men. However, there was a significant variation in the typical cyborg design. They were half robot and half animal hybrids, all sturdy species picked for their unique characteristics. The head and torso bones were surgical steel, overlaid with living animal flesh. Attached to this surgical steel framework were robotic arms and legs. A highly advanced computer processor, called the awareness chip, or AC, tied to the animal's organic brain, gave it analytical function and reasoning skills. His colleague Dr. Kogoro did that work. This AC connected flesh to the machine. The AC made the animal act and think like a human. It was this Anaborg project that put him and Kogoro on the map. It made them among the wealthiest men on Earth until the war. The Anaborg project, developed 50 years earlier, solved for harsh ice mining weather conditions. Van Carber brought up a detailed scan of the anatomy. He continued to think through the design. So they were animals linked to a machine carriage. Again, it was the AC that linked the machine to the animal. He had wondered if this code matrix could be hacked. What would be the best potential sleeper agent? He started to page through Anaborg designs as a refresher. There were 6 species or tribes. What was their weakness? How could they be tricked or manipulated and finally used? He knew these Anaborgs better than they knew themselves. He was unsure of their weakness now, but he knew what weakness was in the original design. This design flaw put him and Kogoro into an eternally lousy light, a light that left them out of the circle of Earth's global elite. The mistake? They had never considered instinctive free will. After working in the Outworlds for years, the Anaborgs realized they were enslaved. This realization led to the bloody Borg Wars. He sat there scanning each design specification for several minutes before going to the next. He saw as family examples the African from the elephant, big horn sheep from the house of the battering ram, Kodiak from the bear, the lion from the big cats, the eagle from the raptors, and finally, a gorilla from the ape. He felt rage bubble up in his stomach. These beasts had been his lifelong curse. They called themselves the Brotherhoods. Hopefully, Karpov found a promising lead with this unknown person and would bail him out. Operation Boomslang needed to succeed. Earth's supreme leader, Theobald Phineas Remus X, sat in the natural hot spring under a cloudy sky at Bagnaccio Spas near Lake Bolsena in the Italy province in the Viterbo region. The heavy, sulfur-rich water helped the pain in his knees and back. His 5 black-suited Secret Service people stood near the pool's edge on the tiled porch. Several young women from the spa building came out to him. The first smiled. "It is time for your massage, Supreme Leader." They stepped into the spa, lifted him while wrapping him in a silk robe, and then placed him into his hover convalescence chair, resting on its belly next to the pool. They covered his legs with a blanket printed with the Bagnaccio logo. A young woman, Barbara de Chardin, walked from the nearby glass doors and waved to him. "Theo, I just got word that Boomslang failed. It is all over the foreign news streams." Remus cursed under his breath. Van Carber is an idiot, and his WAR agents are like a hill of red ants, all the running around and biting. He has brought us another black eye. I wish he were... Barbara handed him his PADD. She had cued details of the story. "Why don't you get rid of him?" Remus's lips pinched tightly before he talked. If only. He started to read the details. Well, the Dreg Van Carber will be useful after all. His YR agent captured an unknown, and it seems a machine was also retrieved. Interesting. This machine's use is still unknown, but with high tachyon readings. He already felt his heart race. Project Phoenix could be back on track. Contact Van Carber. I want that machine. Get my car. I must get back to Rome region and catch an urgent transport to the scimitar. He was pointing at her. Now go. Barbara Desjardins turned with a small gasp and jogged off awkwardly in her high heels.